Good afternoon, everyone. I'm presenting on behalf of Medicine 3. Presenting Mr. A, a 48-year-old male from Tiruvannamalai, who presented with complaint of decreased responsiveness for 2 days and fever for 1 day. The decreased responsiveness was mainly in terms of poor verbal response. There was decreased verbal output from the previous day onwards, which was followed by on the day of fever, he was not responding orally. This was followed by fever, which was high grade and continuous, associated with chills. However, he did not have any symptoms of seizures, headache. He did not have any neck pain. He did not complain of any cough with expectoration or chest pain, palpitations, or syncope. There is no history of any burning micturition or abdominal pain, no history of any jaundice. Apart from that, he was diagnosed to have Parkinson's disease 4 years ago. Initially, he was when he was working in Malaysia, he noticed rigidity in the left upper and lower limb. He was not able to move that left upper and lower limb freely, and he was evaluated at that time, and he was started on Syndopa 110 mg, Syndopa CR, and ropinirole. So over the past 4 years, his symptoms were stable, but then from the past 6 months onwards, he has been found to have increased rigidity, and he was symptom free for 3 hours, followed by 2 hours he was like symptomatic. So this was his baseline history. Otherwise, there is no history of any known comorbidities. So baseline wise, he was requiring little assistance for activities of daily living, as in somebody has to remind him to take food, and otherwise he was moving all 4 limbs, and he was mobilizing himself. And there is no family history of similar Parkinson's disease also, and there is no family history of malignancy. When he came to ED, his respiratory rate was 24, pulse rate was 138, blood pressure 140/80, his temperature at that time was 103. GCS documented in ED was 11/15, E4, B2, and M5. In the ward, when we received him, his pulse was 140, blood pressure 130/80, temperature of 104, and respiratory rate of 26. GCS was 9/15. He was very dehydrated. However, there was no pallor, icterus, clubbing, cyanosis, lymphadenopathy, or edema. CNS examination wise, GCS 9/15, E2, V2, and M5. Pupils were equal and reactive to light. There was increased tone noted in the left upper and lower limb. Power was at least 3/5, although we could not assess the individual muscle groups, and reflexes were 2+ on all sides, and plantars were bilaterally flexor, and other system examination was normal. So with the patient presenting with continuous fever and decreased responsiveness, our initial differentials were heat stroke, neuroleptic malignant syndrome because he was on dopamine agonist, and septic encephalopathy because it was a high-grade fever with altered sensorium, and we were also thinking of meningitis. Speaking of the differentials, with the temperature around well or per se, heat stroke was a high possibility. We do not know how, if he discontinued dopamine agonist or not, to call it a neuroleptic malignant syndrome, and he did not fulfill the DSM-5 criteria to name it. And septic encephalopathy, it's a good possibility, and meningitis per se, he did not have any neck stiffness. So initial evaluation wise, when he came in with a HB of 12.7, total counts of 15,000, with neutrophils of 86, lymphocyte of 8, and monocyte of 8, and platelets were normal. Electrolytes wise, he was dehydrated, sodium was 105, and one striking thing is the CPK was elevated 6421. There was mild AKI with creat of 1.27. Rest of the investigations were fairly okay, except for an SGOT of 186. So proceeding further, we sent blood cultures which showed no growth, and with CSF analysis was also normal, CT MRI brain was normal. So we treated him as heat stroke. We gave him cooling measures. Electrolytes were corrected. In view of poor sensorium, he was shifted to ICU and he was monitored. DKA which was present was corrected. So with all of these things, his CPK was also gradually coming down, and from 6421 it came to 241. So as the patient was improving, what happened was on day 4 of admission, when he was in the ward, he developed sudden onset abdominal pain with one episode of melena. Followed by that, there was constipation. Examination wise, abdomen was distended, and there was absent bowel sounds, and X-ray KAB was also, X-ray abdomen was showing dilated bowel loops. So at this point, what we thought was an acute intestinal obstruction and a GI bleed also. So we asked for a gastroscopy and a proctosigmoidoscopy. Gastroscopy was showing a Forrest grade 3 ulcer. Proctosigmoidoscopy showed a circumferential large ulceroproliferative growth noted from the anal, which is from 18 to 24 centimeter with mild luminal narrowing. CT was also showing irregular wall thickening in the upper rectum with marked dilatation of the large bowel with features suggestive of a malignancy with borderline enlarged mesorectal nodes. So at this point of time, he has come with a malignancy, and we did biopsies of the same, which was showing a moderately differentiated adenocarcinoma from the growth itself. And a mesenteric node was also biopsied in the surgery, where which also showed adenocarcinoma. So this patient has presented outside with features of Parkinsonism, and 4 years later on, we are diagnosing adenocarcinoma of the rectosigmoid now. So Parkinson's disease, a paraneoplastic manifestation. So that is the discussion today. So when we looked at the pathogenesis of this paraneoplastic neurological syndromes per se, the main pathogenesis which is linked to this is the fact that earlier there are aberrant perturbations of the immune response in the setting of infection or malignancy or an immune process. This will direct the production of pathogenic antibodies to the neuronal surface antigens or intracellular synaptic antigens or the cytoplasmic or the nuclear antigens. These are mainly called as the antibodies which are produced are mainly called as the onconeural antibodies, although they are not having any pathological role. These are the markers of the paraneoplastic disorders. So with the Parkinson's disease and correlation of malignancy per se, when we look into the colorectal malignancy, the DR polymorphism, which is the polymorphism linked to Parkinson's disease, is linked to the development of colorectal malignancies. And the paraneoplastic manifestation of Parkinson's is a rare phenomenon per se. As such, when we look into the secondary causes of Parkinsonism, drug-related and vascular are the most common ones, whereas the autoimmune causes are the rare ones to say. There are few case reports where paraneoplastic Parkinson's is related to a malignancy. One of which is one which was published in some movement disorder journal in 1989, where a 42-year-old lady presented with initially with unexplained weight loss following action tremors and difficulty in initiating gait, and 3 months after the onset of she was diagnosed with infiltrating ductal carcinoma of the breast with a metastasis to liver and lymph nodes. The movement disorder per se, it was a severe intentional and postural tremor with myoclonic component, followed by, with minimal resting tremors and severe dysarthria dysphagia with small stepped and slightly ataxic gait, which progressed to bedbound state and dystonic posturing. She also had this Parkinsonian posture with fixed and painful flexion of elbows and wrists. So she was treated for the malignancy per se with chemotherapeutic drugs like cyclophosphamide, methotrexate, 5-fluorouracil, and for the movement disorder per se, she was treated with levodopa carbidopa combination, anticholinergics, and which gave no benefit. But the patient passed away due to mobility-related complications after 5 months of neurological symptom onset. Similarly, there was another lady, 63-year-old female, who was diagnosed with worsening gait and balance disturbances for 3 months, where in this patient per se, they found the onconeural antibody anti-RI positive. So she later was diagnosed with high-grade ductal carcinoma, and post-malignancy, her survival was very short, like she passed away 8 months later. So these are two case reports where Parkinson's disease is paraneoplastic and linked to a malignancy per se. So when we diagnose, how do we diagnose how do we approach a secondary Parkinsonism? So if there is Parkinson, this is one algorithm per se. So if there is Parkinsonism, which we are suspecting as due to a secondary cause, we exclude vascular and drug-induced causes. If patients present with fever, leukocytosis with history of travel or exposure, we treat the underlying infection, test for onconeural or neuronal surface antibodies, search for tumors, and intensify the tumor screening and follow-up. And we also should consider treatment with dopaminergic and other symptomatic drugs and reevaluate and consider the follow-up over time. For our patient per se, he underwent laparotomy with sigmoid colostomy. Biopsy was showing moderately differentiated adenocarcinoma. So MDT was held and he's transferred currently under medical oncology for systemic chemotherapy. Learning points to watch out for secondary causes of Parkinson's when patient's presentation is atypical. The thing is, his age is 48 and it's a very early presentation. He was diagnosed at 44 years of age itself. Thank you.
Phoenicia, thank you for the presentation. It was quite interesting. This is a patient whom I have been also familiar because I think he traversed through ICU at least twice before he was transferred to medical oncology. A few things that I thought I will ask you was why this name Alahomora? What door does it open to, and what was the pathway to which it opened?
So the thing is, he was being managed for a Parkinson's disease without being evaluated for a secondary cause for quite 4 years. So this admission served as a pathway to diagnose his malignancy, which we picked up right now and we are treating for.
Yeah, although I tend to agree that it definitely opened the pathway to finally diagnose him to see a rectum. I don't know, the path that he has chosen now might not be great. Second thing that I wanted to ask is, see, usually a paraneoplastic neurological syndrome, if it is associated with a malignancy, you will usually get these disorders within a matter of a few weeks to a month. This was a patient who was diagnosed to have Parkinson's almost 4 years back. I understand that considering his age and refractoriness to the dopamine agonistic therapy, that you would definitely have to have, he probably should have been worked up for secondary and atypical Parkinson's before itself. But can it be genuinely attributed to only the malignancy when the time interval between the onset of symptoms, which is about 4 years back, to the diagnosis of a malignancy, which is probably now, according to the stage that you have given, it's a circumferential growth with the mesocolal node that is positive. I don't know whether we can attribute to that, but I agree that it is definitely given us, his admission during this particular episode has given us an opportunity to evaluate and give him a diagnosis for a possible mitotic disorder here. The second thing that I had wanted to ask, the initial presentation was quite acute. Remember, he has been reasonably able to take care of himself, so much so that he was able to travel to another place to get a second opinion. He traveled to, I think, Nimans to get a second opinion, and following which he was started on 2 new drugs, and then once he came back within a period of a week or so, he developed this obtundation subsequently. Yeah, one of the things that could have possibly caused it, considering that the sodium was 104, would have been a drug-induced hypernatremia, which could have precipitated the symptoms presently. But that should have sort of resolved once the sodium was better, unless he had developed some osmotic demyelination, which was not the case in this patient. The second thing was that in the acute, you mentioned that the temperature was also on the slightly higher side. We never measured the core temperature, I believe, at any point of time. And the CPK was also on the higher side. So some of we have to understand that there are diseases which can be aggravated by heat stress. It doesn't necessarily have to present like a heat stroke with neurological dysfunction and a core temperature that is higher. The present guidelines for heat stroke has taken away the temperature criteria, because a patient might be found in a particular temperature. By the time he comes to hospital, which is much more cooler, some therapeutic intervention, he comes to ICU, the temperature might be less than 105, the usual cutoff. So heat-related illness and illness that can be aggravated by heat stress should also be considered. I think you had considered that also as a initial diagnostic. Those are the things that I thought I can bring forth in this patient. My only query about this, can we really call it a paraneoplastic malignancy when there is a time duration gap of about 4 years and the malignancy has not spread extensively as what we could expect? Okay. Yes, definitely we were able to find a diagnosis. The learning point is that young age, poorly responsive to dopamine agonists, we need to look for secondary causes. Probably mutation analysis and so on should have been considered by whoever diagnosed the Parkinson's initially. Thanks, Vinisha. We'll go to the next presenter.